Good morning and welcome to the Culture and Community Design Information Session put on by the Atlanta Regional Commission. We are recording this session and I welcome you to use the chat function anytime throughout the session to ask us questions. Chats are open and we'll be responding to them. We will also have time for questions later on in the session. So feel free to ask them there and we may answer them right away in the chat, or we may come back to them when we take a break for questions. Before we get going, I'd like to introduce our team here. Oops. My name is Josh Phillipson, I'm Principal Program Specialist for Arts, Culture, and Creative Placemaking at the Atlanta Regional Commission. Marion Liu is our Director for Community Engagement in the Arts. And Molly Bogle manages the Community Development Assistance Program. You'll be hearing from Marion in just a second, and you'll be hearing from Molly later on in the program. Today, we are going to be discussing the Culture and Community Design program, its development, its purpose, its outcomes. Marion will go over that. Next, we will welcome the leaders of the Alif Institute, one of our organizational partners from the 2022 program earlier this year. Excited to hear from them. After our discussion with Alif, we'll talk about what to expect in the 2023 program, how it's structured, briefly what we will be covering, and then we will talk with Molly about how this program connects to other Atlanta Regional Commission programs, other funding programs. And finally, we'll come back and we'll talk about how you as an organization can submit a proposal to be considered as one of our partners, our organizational partners for 2023. We'll have time for Q&A at the end of the session. And like I said, we will also take some time after we speak with Alif to answer questions, and we will attempt to answer your questions you put in the chat throughout the session as well. So by the end of today's session, we hope that you will understand the background, purpose, and outcomes of this program, what we intend the outcomes to be. You'll have learned what the experience was like last year for the Alif Institute, and you'll understand the program structure and content, how it all comes together, and what the role of the organizational partner is in that. You know who to talk to if you have any questions, and we will encourage you throughout this session to be in touch with questions during the session, after the session, before you apply any questions you have. This is a discussion about how this best works and what we're looking for. And you'll know what the next steps that you need to do are. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marion Liu. Marion, tell us about the program.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for that welcome. And thank you all for being here with us today, especially Marta and Alta from the Alif Institute. I really wanted to say how grateful I am, how grateful we all were for their partnership in this last program year earlier this year, because it was really the first time that we had worked with community-based organizations. So it was really a fantastic experience, I hope for them as well as for us. And so the background of this work, this program is really started around 2 years ago when we were thinking about how the agency's arts and culture work would evolve. The arts and culture work came into the community development department then, and we were thinking about ways in which we could really start working more closely with artists and creatives and culture bearers to really enhance and improve our planning and engagement work so that it is more inclusive and equitable, and to be able to reach and connect with people in communities that aren't always able to participate in our local and regional planning processes, and perhaps have never been introduced to the work that we do at the Atlanta Regional Commission. And so in 2021, we began using our formerly known as the Arts Leaders of Metro Atlanta program, which Josh led for several years as an incubator for this new kind of work and new kind of thinking. And we became much more intentional about working with, including working artists, and ensuring that the program was more racially and ethnically diverse, and becoming more focused about who we wanted to bring together. So again, artists and culture bearers, but also planners, and people working in local government who are really form the, our constituents, and our typical partners in the planning realm, and really thinking about creative and accessible ways to address some of our region's greatest challenges. And so in 2022, like I mentioned earlier, we started working with community-based organizations like Alif Institute. And we were looking for organizations that were very much rooted in the communities that they serve, and that have been underrepresented in planning, and whose mission had a really strong focus on arts and culture. And so we brought the talents of the people who were participating in the leadership program to work closely with these three community-based organizations on ideas that they were interested in pursuing. And so over the past 2 years, we've been really, incubating this program. And it's not even a program so much as it is an approach to our core planning work for the future growth and development of the region, and really working with and supporting our communities who know what you all know what you need best. And so that's where we are today. Next slide. So the purpose of this work is that we advance arts and culture as an essential part of inclusive and equitable planning in communities across Metro Atlanta. Next slide. And our hope for outcomes in this work is that community-based organizations are prepared to participate in and lead planning processes, with ARC really serving as a collaborator and conduit to investment and implementation. And we hope that artists, culture bearers, working alongside planners, designers, and people working in government can collaborate on planning and engagement projects. And finally, we hope that the lessons learned on inclusive and equitable planning can be applied and practiced throughout the region. Next slide. So these were the three organizations that we had the honor of working with earlier this year. Alif Institute, who you'll be hearing from later today, Bell Ethnic Dance Company, and We Love Buford Highway. Next slide. And here are some of just a small example of some of the projects, some of the recommendations that came out of this work. Alif Institute their property is located along the future path of the Petrie Creek Greenway, and they're really looking for ways to integrate their own programming and the cultural activities that they have into this proposed multi-use trail, and also activating the property, their own property, with places for gathering, places for activity, for food, and art installations, whether temporary or permanent. Next slide. Bell Ethnic Dance Company, one of the recommendations for integrating their work into a sidewalk, into the connections that they were looking to make with the rest of their community around them in East Point, to MARTA, to downtown East Point, really showing off what they do through these physical connections. Next slide. And then We Love Buford Highway, which has been working on cultural preservation in the Buford Highway community, is thinking about ideas to really share the stories they've been gathering from the immigrant and refugee community with other members of their community throughout the corridor. And so we're thinking about placing a community newspaper in locations throughout that neighborhood. Next slide. And so, which brings us to our conversation today with our honored guests, Simona Abdul Hamid and Alta Schwartz from Alif Institute. It's been such a pleasure working with them. As you saw earlier, there were some recommendations that came out of this collaboration with them. Alif is a nonprofit education, culture, arts and enrichment center with a mission to foster understanding and appreciation of Arab cultures. And so I'm really happy to welcome them today. You can feel free to enter your questions in at any time in the chat, which Josh will be monitoring. So can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, a little bit about Alif, how you all started, your mission and what you do? And Mona, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. As Marian said, my name is Mona Abdelhamid. I'm the executive director here at Alif, and joining us as well as Alta Schwartz. She's the operations director. Alif Institute has been around since 2003 in its current capacity. We are sitting on a 10-acre land in Chambly Tucker. It's the Arab Cultural Center in Atlanta and in the Southeast. As you know, Marian summed it up with the mission and the vision, and that's what we do. We educate about Arab cultures in all its levels. We connect, in the hope that education and knowledge of the Arab culture and would bridge the gaps of misunderstanding between different parts of the community. We do it through the arts. We do it in all its capacities. We do it through language. Alif is really about experience. So it's not about coming and learning a language or just coming and learning an instrument. It is really about what you do while you're here. Our students who come and learn languages, it's always paired with cultural experiences. They become a community, they connect, they make personal relationships, they attend social events that we might have with the Arab community if they are of non-Arab origin. So it's really about the experience you get when you're in here and when you are participating in any of our programs, whether they're on-site or off-site. We also, like Marian and with our ARC, we have partners around the city. We encourage partnerships. We love to, and we like to collaborate with other organizations because we are part of the bigger Atlanta fabric. And our impact is not only on the Arab community, it is our hope that our work reaches beyond and affects the larger greater Atlanta community and actually national. We have some work that we do a lot with the national organizations as well. That's in a very, summary. We don't want to go too long. And I don't know if Alta wants to add anything.
I think that Mona's emphasis on experience really is the key. It's what sets Alif apart from other centers around the country. We are part of a network, as Mona mentioned, of Arab cultural centers, but many of them focus more specifically on a particular aspect of culture, whereas we're broad. We represent the entire Arab world and all aspects of Arab culture.
And if I can introduce our collaboration with ARC last year, we really were very excited when you guys reached out to us. And it was perfect timing, honestly. We have a project. I don't know, Marian, you put a slide, which would be perfect, I think, to introduce, if you don't mind. There is a project going on in Atlanta. It's called the Peachtree Creek Greenway. They're trying to, part of it in Brookhaven has been established and built, and it goes north of Brookhaven and south, which is something like the Beltline. We discovered years ago, I don't know how many now, 3, 4, maybe a little bit more, that it's coming close to Alif. So if you see where it says Alif Institute, that building, but all the greenery where all these diagrams are is still part of our 10 acres. The yellow is a tributary that could pass, or at least they already approved this tributary, so to pass, and it will pass exactly on the borders of our property, which Alif has also offered the city that we would give access to our property for this path to go in. And that's part of why this tributary actually was approved. It is a big deal for Alif because it connects us to the bigger community. So that was going on. At the same time, ARC came forward. And so we immediately, said, yes, this is the project we'd like to do. Where this path connects with the land, we've always thought of it as an opening to the rest of the property and the rest of the institute and what it can offer. So it's a little glimpse that you would see on the pathway of what Alif Institute is about and what Arab culture, actually more importantly, is about, through a small stage, a temporary exhibit area, cafe, things like that. So that was the project that we worked with ARC. So we were very excited that they came in and offered us this opportunity. I know it is more of an exercise, but it's also great to see it come in through somebody else's eyes of what we are thinking about. So that was our project, and we were very excited to go through it last year. Thank you.
Thank you. So you already covered a little bit about what I was going to ask, what did you hope to gain from this experience, and were those expectations met?
I'll answer, I guess, first, and Alta, I'm sure she has her own. Yes, we were hoping to, one, we wanted to put our theoretical visions on paper, get it translated a little bit more practically. Secondly, it was great to see it come through someone else's eyes after we explain. It's like, what do you say? You always preach to the choir. We talk among ourselves in our community, but it's nice to see it outside our circle for people to understand what we want and translate it. It was a very pleasant experience, honestly, very easy. We didn't know what to expect coming into it. We didn't know how much our part was part of it. We thought, for me, Alta went through the program on the other side years ago. I haven't. So I thought we would go more into the design with everybody, but we didn't, which in a way was good, because this way we don't affect anybody and get them to work freely after they received our information. So it was really very easy. I don't think it took too much of our time. I think the benefit outweighs way the commitment time, and we do it again. It's anytime. Anytime you knock at our doors, we'll do it.
Yeah. So, I remember talking with you, or you sharing with the group that you have like an architecture or design background, and you're familiar with the work, this kind of work already, right?
Yes.
And I'm just curious, and you also described how, coming from your home country to moving to Atlanta was such a shock for you in terms of how, the sprawl, the lack of connection to nature. And I'm just wondering, with your background, your history, and then also but also your, professional experience and knowledge, what was that like working with a regional planning agency? Can someone without all of that knowledge, what do you think their experience would be like?
Well, I guess Alta will answer the second part. I'll answer the first part. Well, for me, it's I think it's just having a group that is multifacets, the backgrounds. You didn't have all artists on the group. You also had planners, you had people of administrative background, you had, so it was really a mix of talents and professions. And, knowing where this work, how it goes, it was really a very smart and very productive way of setting these projects. Because when you have things coming this way, especially in the initial planning, you're really allowing the opportunity for a project to be seen and studied from all aspects, and everybody's on the same team. You don't have to go and outsource knowledge. Everybody's there putting their input in. So that adds a tremendous value to a project. Coming to Atlanta, it was more actually, honestly, the only thing that bothered me was two things. One was public transportation, which still bothers me, that if you don't have a car, you're a prisoner of your own space. And, coming from a region that is more open because of the lack of trees, I used to look for the horizon a lot when I first came. I was like, I can see everything from the bottom. I need to see things from the top. But no, really, I think having all the professions together is the correct way to go about this, that it's not only directed to only the arts groups and arts organizations. It is everybody who makes a community and everybody who can, planning. That's what planning is, everybody. So I think that's the correct way to go. I don't know, ultimately.
So for me, it's not so far from my background either. I did a master's program at Georgia State in public administration, nonprofit management. And, I also worked in the Middle East Institute at Georgia State, and that was an interdisciplinary program. I'm a huge fan of interdisciplinary programs, and particularly when they're paired with planning, because planning, the essence of planning is looking at things from multiple, viewpoints. You can't, just have one tool in your toolbox. You have to have all of them. And it pairs so well with what we do at Alif. Coming from an academic and activist background, I was frustrated because I could see problems, but I didn't have tools to fix them. And I feel like I eventually wound up at Alif because using culture and art is the fastest way to break down barriers and, reach people's hearts and minds at the same time. So I think that this program that you're proposing in its newest form, going back to Alma for 2 seconds, I really appreciated, you guys really opened up, I think, our view of what could happen with Alif, because we were directly put in contact with other nonprofits in other, different types of nonprofits, along with regional planning entities. So that was fantastic. And it's like you've taken that experience and now put it into more of a straightforward workshop rather than just kind of taking in that information. You're taking it in and using it at the same time.
Yes, that's a perfect distillation of what we're trying to do. So I'm grateful that, you explained it so clearly. So getting to sort of like the practical aspect of the experience, how would you describe your actual experience, your interactions with the groups, the site visit? Do you feel like you were asked to do too much or too little? Like, how did the nuts and bolts of how the program went? How did that feel for you all?
Well, to start with, no, I don't think it was too much, the time that we put into it as an organization. It was good. More, if there was more time, maybe, but really it wasn't too much at all. I think the site visit was essential. I don't think any team can work without really being on the site of a project that they're going to be in and experiencing it and walking it through. So yes, starting with a site visit is very important. And the questions that happened after the session we had after on site at Alif, where everybody was, after what they saw, they had many questions and things. I think that was very, very informative to the team and for us to be able to answer those questions, having that opportunity. I prefer personally the personal contact than everything going on email. I do remember you guys had a plan where people can ask us questions. Really, that was not very successful. I think we missed some of the emails with all the crazy emails we get at the same time. People, I think, were not really, it wasn't going as I think you planned it. I think the personal meeting was highly successful and was able to get everybody in. And no, the time that we had to invest in this was not too much at all. It wasn't bothering us and it didn't take too much of our time.
Yeah, well, I hope you'll be happy to know that we already took some of your feedback that we discussed, in our debriefing earlier this year. We've incorporated that to lengthen the program by a little bit so that you do have more personal contact and more consultation with the team. So we've added that so that, you're really helpful to us.
Yeah, I do know that the time is short, so it's hard for them to come maybe in the middle. And again, it would be great to have something at a middle point, like a check-in in the middle point. That would be really nice. But considering the time frame, I do understand that it is still a short, compact time and program, so it could be a little bit hard to do that. That's up to you guys.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we have lengthened it. And like I said, I'm so grateful to you all for taking a chance on us in the first year to really help us think through this program as it's been evolving. And so, I really want to emphasize to the groups that are attending this information session is that it's such an exchange and a collaboration. We hope that, our partnerships with the community-based organizations are ones that continue, that last, beyond the duration of just the program itself. And that we really take your feedback to heart and continue incorporating all the feedback as we move forward.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing. I think
Yeah.
very interesting in the program was meeting the other organizations, knowing what's in Atlanta, what's going on. It's very different when you're researching online and you see some names, but we were able to meet other organizations, talk a little bit on the side, and they're in the back of our mind for future collaborations or things we can do, or it's just watching them, what they're doing and seeing how other people think. I think that was really interesting and very important part of the program.
I don't know if you're still going to do this on the next round, but I really enjoyed the reveal and wrap up. Mona and I were so excited to see what the groups were going to present. And I enjoyed seeing the other presentations and having other groups that were not a part of our project commenting on what the group presented. So yeah, I would give a plug for that.
Yes, we still have that. We still have the final session where everyone comes together and also can offer feedback on the recommendations from their own team as well as the recommendations from the other team. And Josh is going to discuss more of the logistics and what is in the program itself after our conversation. So what was the most valuable part of this whole experience? I know you've really touched on some things that were positive for you all, but what do you think the most valuable
for me? I think for me, it's not the project itself. It was really the connections and being able to see what's happening in Atlanta as a city more. I think for me, it opened up. Like when you guys first came, I really had no understanding of what's going on or what this is about, the whole thing. And even ARC, I had to go in and look a little bit more. But I think what was nice is being able to see a broader perspective of what's going on in our city and the different people who are working on different different projects or different visions and missions. For me, that was very valuable.
I would second what Mona said, and I think that the process of us explaining to an outside group what we were thinking about, what we were looking at, just it forced us to think through some things and think about things more clearly, and then having that feedback from the outside. Having that feedback from the outside was an added bonus. So I think the whole process for us was really meaningful.
Where do you think it'll go? Where do you think these recommendations that you now have, where do they go next?
Well, we're working, what you gave us is there because there's a couple of facets we can use this. In the immediate, it helps us share with our community and our supporters and donors some of the visions where we want to go and some of those. Same time, like I said, this last 2 years, everything came together. We have a couple of opportunities. We'll see where they go, where we're also working on the expansion and renovation of our property and a master plan. And we're working with an architectural firm who have chosen Alif to be their, I don't know what you call it, their pro bono work for the year. So it's really nice to be able to share that part of it. So to add it to more of the vision, the master plan, it's like you got a gift of, I don't know how many people they were, I think 10 or so of their ideas where you didn't have to plan it. They just came on and donated what they perceive out of, what you want. So it's really very, very valuable to have that. It's just perfect timing for us to use it. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the timing, Mona said it, the timing was spot on, and we're going to take the presentation and actually use aspects of it in thinking about our very next steps. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just looking at the question, Stephanie. You said, did any of your connections or end results of your project result in financial support or major in-kind support for the growth? At the moment, not yet, but it is definitely a tool that we will be using. We're working towards putting, we started, let me give you some background. We, in 2019, Alif started a capital campaign for renovation and expansion of the property. And then, of course, COVID hit and we put a hold on it, but we had some funds collected from it. Of course, because of COVID going through 2 years, many of the donors and supporters are waiting to see what we could do with that money, because we didn't get to our goal because of COVID. So all this work that now we're trying to put together is to relaunch this. And it's really this material that we got through this project will be in addition to that. So right now, no, we did not from this project, but it will definitely be used as a tool to go down that path that we're working on.
Thank you for answering that question. So what are your thoughts and recommendations, any suggestions for the groups that are on this call in thinking about, participating in this program?
Alta, do you have one quickly?
I mean, I think that it depends on where they are in their life cycle and what sorts of projects they're envisioning. It forces you to try to figure out what you want and what the possibilities are. And if you have even a beginning of an idea, then I think it would be very valuable, well worth your time. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest hurdle really is having an idea of where you want to go. And then this whole process will help you sort of flesh that out.
Yeah, I agree with Alta. Be specific on what you want to present ARC with as a program, because it is a short time. It's not as much as you lengthened it. It's still a small project. Don't be too broad. Like, we all as nonprofits, we want everything. We have a lot of dreams. We have a lot of things sitting on that table trying to pick from. Try to pick something that you feel within the time frame you can get some results. This program is not going to solve everything you have on that table, but it will give you a little glimpse of an opportunity. So I would say pick something that matches the time frame, the abilities, the idea of this project, so you can get more out of it and maybe have some more use for it in the future. It doesn't just sit on a shelf.
How do you all see yourself working with ARC in the future? How do you want us to, continue to support you all and help you as you grow?
Well, I personally see you as a window for us to be able to keep connecting with the other organizations and stay updated on what's going on in Atlanta, and all the connections that we can make with you. I love that you, like Marian, you are participating in our events, like you came to our festival and stuff. So I love that continuous relationship that's growing and getting to know. So yeah, so I just looking forward to see what more else we can do through these opportunities, as well as what AlifCon, not just taking, but really how can Alif contribute more to the bigger Atlanta fabric. That's what we would like. I feel like ARC could be a not a doorway, but something like a doorway for us to be able to be part of the bigger Atlanta family and have our foot in there and give our own perspective and whatever we can help with Atlanta as a city.
And Josh just commented that he's going to be at one of our classes coming up. We're very excited about that, Josh. And yeah, in just on top of what Mona said, one of the things that I'm fascinated about, because I do have an interest in public planning, is, looking at things through different lenses. So one of the things that Alif is really passionate about is looking at having something for everyone, right? And we currently work a lot with youth, and we do have some programs for elderly population, but that's something that we're interested in getting more involved in. And Marian and Josh, I remember even in the past, one of the things that ARC is looking at is aging in place, and how do we support our senior populations. So culture and arts are a great way to do that. So that's something that I hope that we can get more connected with in the future.
Absolutely. So are there any other questions from the audience as we wrap up here? This is a great resource for you to, really check in with a group that has already gone through this experience. Let's see if you have anything, you wanted to ask them directly.
Just feel free anytime. Our information are with Marian and Josh, and you can reach out to us anytime if you have questions on the side or something comes up later. We're we always love to hear from everybody.
Oh, do you have an announcement that you want to share? I know you have something coming up tomorrow.
Oh, the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Follow us on social media. Thank you.
Well, we have partnered with a Arab American director of Lebanese origin. His name is Walid Muannas. He just launched his first movie, and he's screening it around the nation. And it's going to be in Atlanta this Friday at the Plaza Theater at 8 p.m. The first screening. He will be there, the director, for a Q&A after. So if you are interested in independent movies, it is in Arabic with subtitles, and it talks about a certain time in Lebanon in 1982 in the war, but it's not a war movie. It's actually a social story, and the war is just a backdrop of it, but it's not really a war story. So it's really, he's been having great reviews. He's had some awards for his movie. So if you're interested, please come join us, and we can add the link here for you to get the tickets from the Plaza Theater on Place de Lyon. Thank you.
And Walid will be there to do Q&A after the film. I've really enjoyed conversations I've had with him. Such an interesting man, such an interesting film. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up, conclude with, what we've been hearing from both you and our other community partners has really been that, like Balethnik last week said, this has been an opportunity to get out of, their dance studio. And for you all, you just mentioned the ability to connect and know what's going on in Atlanta. Atlanta is so spread out that, we have pockets of communities here and there that are just not connected. And you mentioned, the lack of transit, we're just prisoners of our own space, like you mentioned. And so I've just been really enjoying hearing, that response from our community organizations of being able to connect and really learn about what other groups are doing throughout the region. So I just wanted to thank you for being with us again, and for sharing that.
Thank you for approaching us. We really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Well, I guess this wraps up our part of our conversation, part of the this info session. Josh, you want to take it away?
Great, thank you. And thank you, Mona and Alta. And I'll just echo that it was such a pleasure to work with you last year, and look forward to continuing how ARC and Alif work together. So I will transition now. Thank you. And all right, let me share my screen again. Sorry, just give me a second. Here we go. All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about what the program, the culture and community design, will look like in 2023. Before I jump in here, this is important to understand the different entities that we're working with here. Today, we're focusing on presenting to talking to organizations who might want to be organizational partners, like Alif was last year. We're looking for 2 organizations to partner with us for the 2023 class. We are also simultaneously looking for individuals to participate in the class, to be that cohort of artists and planners and community leaders and local government folks that are working with those 2 organizations. So as I go through here, I will be describing the program overall and trying to be really clear about what parts the organization will be involved in. But I will also talk about some parts that the class will be involved in as well. So the class is going to be focusing on 3 things. So the cohort of individuals they'll be learning from local and national experts in arts, culture, in creative placemaking. So folks like Kalinda Lee, formerly of the Atlanta History Center, who's pictured there. They'll be participating in group discussions on local and regional arts planning topics and issues. They'll be interacting both with speakers and each other, just so they understand, have that context for working with the organizations. And then primarily, of course, they'll be working on projects. So they'll be working on a team, there'll be 2 teams. So these are multidiscipline teams. So this is like Mona Alta were saying, they have all these different expertise they're bringing to bear on the project that the organization has put forth and is proposed to the ARC. They'll be working towards deliverables. This is something that we spend time with our organization partners at the beginning to really define what the teams will be doing. So throughout the session, we will be talking to the participants, to the cohort. These are your deliverables. They'll understand them from the very beginning. They'll be their classmates, the rest of the cohort who's sort of giving them feedback. The other team will be holding them to those deliverables, will be reminding them and setting up milestones so that they can be successful in bringing those deliverables to the final presentation. They will have specific community engaged teams. Will have specific community.
Oh, I just wanted to chime in. That picture from the project base is also from the Alif project.
That's right.
So, yeah. Sorry.
Right.
Thanks.
That's a great example of a deliverable that that team had, which was to sort of imagine all of this together, and it was facilitated by having, of course, some incredible visual artists on the team who were doing this kind of live as their team was discussing. So the amount of great drawings that came out of that team was really truly impressive. And so they will they'll have some specific community engagement goals that the team will be putting together. They'll be working with the organization on how those community engagement activities will support the project. We will also we have a budget for those community engagement processes, and activities. And so that's something that's new this year. So you wouldn't have heard us talking about it in terms of how the Alif group and project went, because we did not have that as part of it. So this is a sort of a new activity that's put on there, and we'll support it with dollars behind it too. And then finally, the last part of this is they'll be working towards a project that will be implemented. So that is the task that we put before the cohort, the individuals who are going through here, is to bring it all together into a project that is at all times supporting the goals and needs of the organization and the community that organization supports. And that's sort of the core of what the cohort is going to go through. But I think what you all want to hear as organizations is how does the organization play into this? What is their role in each of these pieces here? So I'm going to go through the whole schedule just briefly on some pieces, and I'm going to focus on the pieces that you all as organizations would be involved in. So all of the dates here are for the cohorts, for the individuals, and I've highlighted the ones that you would be directly involved in. Our cohort will get together for a welcome breakfast where they kind of get to know each other, and we talk about the whole program. That's a short day. The program days, the next list of 6 dates, are the main time that they'll be getting together and working. Of course, the first thing we want to do is have you all come and speak to the whole cohort. So both teams, you'll of course be, the one team will be listening very intently and have lots of questions, but we want both teams to be there because that second team is going to be that feedback loop, internal feedback loop for the other team in the class. So that's on March 7th. So we will, I'll talk a little bit more in a second about what that will look like on March 7th. March 28th through August 15th, those 4 dates, is mostly the class meeting and talking to speakers and working on their projects. There will be check-in periods in there, but they're not scheduled or tagged to specific program days. And then September 12th is the final presentation that Mona and Alta talked about, which is a lot of fun to have a chance to have that final presentation chance where we get to see all the great work that's going on. That's September 12th, and that's a definite come the whole day and see that, and we'll have specifics on the times later. In between, so not one of the program days, there'll be site visits where the team will come to either your location or a location in your community that you choose. It doesn't have to be like your building. You don't need to have a building to do this. So it can be where whatever makes most sense, and we'll work with you on that, or it can be a couple locations. And also I mentioned these community community engagement co-design sessions. We will have 1 or 2 of those, again, working with you about where those will take place in June. So during one of these weeks or both of these weeks, and there's a budget to support that as well. All right, so moving on. So just to get a little more specific about what the commitment would look like for your organization. This is what we would expect you to be doing here. And that includes some of the dates that we talked about with the class, but it includes some meetings that wouldn't actually fit onto or wouldn't be part of that schedule for the class. So in December and January, we would have meetings with you. The ARC staff would sit down and meet with you to talk about the projects. These can be in virtual, it can be in person, but we would work out the details, the deliverables of the project specifically, but some of the other goals as well. Somewhere in between February and September, we've set aside, we will schedule 3 90-minute meetings with your team and your organization and any necessary stakeholders to check in on where the project is. And this comes directly from feedback with Alif, is that they wanted to have that touch point somewhere in the middle. And so this is where we're doing. They will be scheduled, and we'll work with you to find out what the best times are. Work with you and the team what the best times are there. Like I said, March 7th, we want you to come and give a 20-minute presentation about your organization and about the project. And there'll be a chance for questions and meeting the team at that point. In April, there'll be the site visit, 2.5 hours on site, and discussion about what your goals are. And that was really, I think that was from our last session, that was really the linchpin of when these projects started to come alive in for both the cohort and for the organization. So this is feedback from all the organizations. That's a really got a chance to be on the ground and talk about what the community needed, what the organization envisioned. In June, we'll do the engagement activity that we talked about. Again, there's a budget for that, and that will be specific to your organization. So I can't tell you specifically what it'll be, but it'll be something that the team works with you on. And then in September 12th, again, that's the final presentation, and it's really the culmination for the cohort, for the individuals. That's the culmination of the program for them. They would, at that point, their commitment is done, but we would keep working with you on how does this transition into more of an implementation phase? What are the opportunities to continue working with the ARC and some of our other funding programs, which Molly will bring up in a minute here. So one thing I want to also bring up is that one of the designs of this is that your organization, if we're selected, we would like one person from your staff or a very involved volunteer board member type person to participate in the cohort as one of those individual participants. So in addition to being an organizational partner, you'll have one person who's embedded on your team who will get the experience of going through the class themselves. They wouldn't cost anything for them to go through, of course. It's a complimentary program mission. They would be that voice of the organization on the team. You know, they're not making all the decisions for the organization, but they're that someone who's there for all the meetings that the team is having. They'll provide that strong connection to the community. So when those little questions come up, there's someone there that can possibly answer them, or, you know, be a conduit to someone else. They don't have to have the answers for everything. And then really, they'd have a really important role in transitioning from the program piece, the presentation that culminates on September 12th, to how we would help implement this afterwards. So there'll be that consistent piece on the team there. So during the application process, which we'll go into in detail, you'll be asked to identify who this might be on your staff as part of your organization. All right, so I am going to move on from here and talk about, so importantly, so we would be paying the organizations that are part of this. Each of the 2 community organizations that we select will be paid $3,000 for their experience and expertise within the communities they serve, and for fulfilling all the program commitments, which we just talked about. And like I said, there'll be a budget available for the community engagement activity. So we have up to $2,000 per organization that would go to support the cost of that activity. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Molly, who will talk to you about the other programs, funding programs at the ARC that might come into play after this program.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Hi, good morning, everyone. As Josh mentioned at the beginning, my name is Molly Bogle, and I manage our Community Development Assistance Program. You can see a definition of that here. I won't read anything out here. Those are just for your edification. But we were established in 2018 to sort of streamline and organize requests we were getting from local governments, community improvement districts, and nonprofits from throughout the region for planning and technical assistance. And so again, we were established to help streamline and organize that process. We did that for 2 years, and then 2020 happened, and we started to change things up a little bit and get a little bit more direct about what we wanted to do and how we wanted to focus our efforts. And so initially, we added 2 program goals. So in addition to this program goal you see here, advancing the goals of the Atlanta Regions Plan, we added promoting and advancing social equity and community resiliency. We did that for several years. While we were doing that, we definitely were clued into the fantastic work that Marion and her group are doing with community-based organizations. So we had a desire, even when we initially created those 2 additional program goals, to find a way to assist with that work, or find a way to also collaborate with community-based organizations. And that's where we are today. This is where we have found ourselves. And so as Community Development Assistance Program staff, we will be assigned to one of the 2 cohorts. So you'll have 1 staff member on each of the cohorts, providing that additional planning and technical assistance and expertise. But I think what's most important here is that what we are going to be doing is, with our knowledge of the other programming that is within ARC, specifically our funding programs, that Livable Centers Initiative and Transportation Improvement Program that you see there, which both have planning and bricks and mortar implementation funds available. We're going to be looking at these projects through the lens of those programs and finding ways that we can make sure that they are sort of funneled to this money. We want to make sure that these projects will be applicable to these funding sources, that when all is said and done and this process is over, that an application can be written successfully for these programs, and that this money can be received. These do have to go to local governments or community improvement districts, but part of this process is us going to be creating those relationships, if they're not already there, to make sure that the local government or the CID is on board, excited, ready to go. And we're going to be sort of helping just find ways that the projects can be funded, creating those bridges between local governments and the community-based organizations if they're not already there, and hopefully successfully getting you some implementation or additional planning funds if that's necessary. So that's what we're here for. We're really excited. And as I put here on the slide, we're a planning organization. We love plans, but really what we love more than that is seeing those plans come to life. So that's really what we're here for, is to make sure that that happens.
Oh yeah, I wanted to jump in and say thank you. I really wanted to acknowledge Molly and say thank you for her support and willingness to be a part of this, because I feel like when there's more of us staff involved and working alongside the community-based organization, that there are more opportunities that, maybe me, Josh, aren't seeing in the moment, right? As we're trying to plan this program and execute every day, every session. It's so helpful to have additional staff from ARC really involved and really part of the process. Because, Alta, you mentioned maybe getting connected to the aging group at ARC and thinking about how the cultural activities and the programming and just traditions, within the Arab community can really be connected to what the aging group is doing, thinking about aging in place. Those are all the things that staff like Molly can really help you as an organization think through all of the connections, potential connections throughout the agency, as well as, as Molly mentioned, what we're really thinking about is how do we move from our plans to implementation? How can I really love the example of what Alif is thinking about with the Peachtree Creek Greenway. Peachtree Creek Greenway is an organization that's working very closely with the cities in Northeast Atlanta, working very closely with DeKalb County to get, they got LCI funding. So, what if these connections to Alif Institute had been included in those budgets that were submitted to our LCI program. And so we're definitely going to be thinking about all of these potential connections within the ARC that the ARC can bring to bear to support you all. And Molly's an instrumental part of that. So we're really grateful to have her as part of this work.
And I see a question from Ms. Moore came in about must all three initiatives go through a CID? So it doesn't have to go through a CID. It can go through a local government as well. Those are the two entities that can apply for funds through those programs. But that's what we're here for, is to make those connections. We have connections with most, if not all, of our local governments and CIDs. And so that's what we're here for, is if you don't already have that connection, we're going to help bridge that gap there.
Great. Fantastic. Molly, thank you. If you're still processing on this, please, if you think of questions as we keep going, put them in the chat or ask them at the end. We can address them during the session, or you can write to us and we can come back afterwards. And then, especially if you have a really specific question about your community. All right, we are going to move on and we're going to talk about the specifics about applying for submitting a proposal for the 2023 Culture and Community Design Program. So, all right. First of all, like I was just saying, we are ever available to discuss specific questions you have. So take a look at the application. We'll talk about it here. Take a look afterwards. And if you have questions before the deadline, before you type up what we ask us, reach out to us, and we can discuss your specific questions. The The deadline is on November 10th, so you must submit a proposal by then. The proposal is on our website, or the link to submit a proposal is on our website. So if you go to atlantaregional.org/CCD, you'll go straight there. And it is it's a link on that page. There's a lot of information about the page that we're covering most of now, but there's some other things you might want to read there as well. So I encourage you to look at that. We'll be taking those applications right after we get them and reviewing them from mid-November through mid-December. That review might include an informational meeting. We might reach out to you if we have some more questions to have a short meeting, probably online, where we would discuss any questions we have with you. That would really be like, spend like a half hour just going through and clarifying some information if we need to do that. And then we will inform all the applicants by late December about the decision. So on organizations that we're looking for, this is our strong priority here. We're seeking to include organizations that represent communities traditionally marginalized or excluded in local and regional planning processes. So this is, of course, including communities defined by race and ethnicity. We're looking for communities that are both geographic, so a neighborhood that or a community that an organization serves, but also ones that are not defined by geography. So, I mean, I think Alif Institute is a great example of this, is that they have a community that they serve, and they are throughout Metro Atlanta, and not even confined just to Metro Atlanta, as we were talking about. Whereas another organization, We Love Buford Highway, which we served, is really focused on so right there in the name, a community that is along a geography of Buford Highway. So this is the priority for the communities that we are serving, that we're looking for, and we'll be looking for in the application questions. All right, so what are the actual questions that we'll be asking? We're going to be asking you questions about your organization, about the organization itself. What is your organization's mission? Where do you provide services, and to whom are your services catering? Who is your community here? And this is really important because we're looking for organizations, of course, that are working deeply within the community and that are proposing a project that is coming from their community. So knowing who your community is, very important. So the community opportunity, that is the project. So why are you interested in this opportunity? Why is the project that you are proposing, why is it of interest to your organization and your community? How do your existing programs and activities align with the purposes and goals of our program, which Marianne talked about, and are also on that page where we have the application link? We try to be really clear about what those are. And then we want you to be really specific about describing the community challenge or opportunity and how this project that you're suggesting, that you're proposing, the outcomes of that project are clear, that participating in this program will address those outcomes. So this is your chance to really give us an idea about how we can help, how this program can contribute to those outcomes there. And I if you're still trying to develop that, we understand that. Talking to us can maybe help do that ahead of time. We will also have a period where we are looking to, we will help you develop the specific deliverables and things like that. But understanding where you want to go with this is really important. And then the last thing we'll be looking at is, what's your organizational capacity? Mostly we're looking about like who's your staff, who's going to be involved in this, in the project overall, and then specifically, like I mentioned before, who is that person who would participate as an individual in the program, in the cohort, in addition to being an organizational partner. So we will be looking at a number of things when we make these decisions. We will be looking for organizations that are demonstrate a deep commitment and experience to the communities they serve, that have that capacity to be able to participate fully in the program. All the commitments that we talked about, we want to make sure that we're choosing an organization that this is something that can fit into their existing work and is something that will be a priority for them during this time. And if this is not the right time for your organization to do this, we want to understand that at that point. We are looking for projects that we think can move past just this program and will be eligible to participate in some of the programs that Molly talked about. Specifically, we're looking for projects that advance transportation and mobility equity, sustainable land use, housing affordability, and environmental climate justice. And if you're thinking, hold on, we have some ideas and I'm not sure how those fit into those very specific planner ease categories, please talk to us, because that is our role, is to try to figure out how those topics can be applied to what you're doing. And they're probably much broader than you're thinking they are. Those are what our programs are focused on. So that is what our guidelines are. But there's so many different ways that projects can fit in there. So don't be discouraged by that language there, but talk to us and we can help you figure out your specific project. Applications that clearly articulate the community challenge or opportunity and desired project outcomes. So it's your community best, and what the challenges or opportunities facing it are. Help us understand that as well in your application and where you're trying to go, because that'll really help us envision how this would work in this program here. So that's that clarity piece there. And then we work with communities throughout the region, and we'd really love to have organizations that are willing to and work on a project and then be able to share it. So I think like what Alif did last year, and how they're coming back and sharing their experience here and what they're doing, their project has a chance to be an inspiration to other communities, both in how they've gone about doing it and the actual product that comes out, the way that their property faces this path. So we're looking for projects and organizations that we can help spread the learning throughout other communities. And then we serve 11 counties. So we're looking for organizations from throughout those 11 counties. So this is something that is open, and we're actively encouraging folks from throughout our region to apply. And with that, we are happy to take questions on anything that we've spoken about, whether specifics of the applications or design of the program overall. So please do ask those there. And I'm take a look now. And
yeah, I can answer these questions,
great.
Josh. So Mother Moore, the sustainable land use, when we're thinking about that, it's kind of like look at Atlanta and don't do that. It's really thinking about how we are balancing, optimizing, the use of our land and our natural resources in a way that is sustainable, in a way that which human society can continue to live in the Atlanta region in a way that is not completely depleting our natural resources and harming our environment. So that is very broad, but hopefully that helps out with that answer. Is really, how can we not continue to sprawl our way out through, this region in a way that is unhealthy and cannot be sustained. For Stephanie's question, yes, absolutely. So we want to talk to you. We would love to talk to you about your ideas, about which one might be the most appropriate one to submit to this program, and help you talk through that, refine what you're thinking about. And like Josh said, don't be dissuaded or deterred by those words that he read off earlier. Like I said in our last session, if you work with people, I think we can find a way to work with you. So please feel free to reach out to us at my email address, and we can set up a call.
To your second question, Stephanie, we've been focusing on organizations in this session. We have another session next week, same time next week on Thursday, the 27th, where we're going to really be focusing on the individual applicants. Just very briefly, there's the slide I had with all the dates on it there. So the individuals would be getting to all those dates, and then we would expect there to be a small amount of time outside of that class that they would be working together as a team to figure out their deliverables. But there would be some outside class time as well. But we will have a lot more details on that on the 27th, which will be also recording if you can't make that specific time.
And I just put into the chat the registration link for that session, if you're
Great.
interested,
Great.
or if you know of anyone who'd be interested in that.
Yes, and I actually think that's a great point, Marion, too. It's if your organization is interested in applying, then sending this to people in the community that you think would be great to work on your project is of course encouraged, even if you're not able to participate this time. Getting people that be involved in this we'd love to have them there. You know more people in the community than we do.
All right. Do we have any final questions? Any final thoughts? Hopefully this has been helpful for you all. It's also being recorded and will be posted online as soon as we can do that.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mona.
Thank you, Mona.
And good luck,
And good luck,
everyone.
everyone.